Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here on set with Terri Austin. We're going to have a great day. We also have with us Keith Lamar. Let's get started right now. Well, Terri, as we waited for his testimony, we waited for him to tie up all of the pieces together. The prosecution put in all of the other kind of evidence, cell phone data, trying to track the location. He's the man they bring in to tie it all together. I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question. Did he do a good job of tying it together, and do you believe him?
I do think he did a good job. So he said that Sievers asked him to kill his wife, so he's connected Sievers to Wright and to Rodgers ultimately. And now I hope we're going to hear Wright talk about the fact that he hired Rodgers to actually do the deed. But I do think the prosecution is connecting those dots.
We also have with us former District Attorney Keith Lamar. Keith, let me ask you, so convenient that he says it was Rodgers who brutally beat this woman to death with a hammer. He acknowledges he hit her a couple of times, but he says the grunt work, the real crux of that attack was at the hands of Mr. Rodgers. What do you think about that?
Well, I believe him. No party to a crime. I think they both went down there. Yes, he is taking a deal, but I think the state did a good job of showing where he's still getting some significant time here. So I would definitely believe him. I think the state did a wonderful job of showing that, and we're going to be very excited to see what happens with the cross.
I am very excited to see what's going to happen with the cross. You think the defense is just going to take this lying down? Not a chance. Well, let's play a little bit more of Curtis Wright from the stand. This was, again, everybody, if you're joining us, we were waiting for this testimony since this trial began. This was the state's star witness. This was from yesterday. Let's play a little bit more. You know, we're kind of getting a taste of what he would testify to in the Sievers trial, the Mark Sievers trial. Their relationship's a bit odd. He's having a conversation with him about potentially murdering his wife at this man's wedding. So what do you make of their relationship? Because I got to tell you, also from an optics point of view, they look very similar in like a wedding photo that was shown. It's kind of strange. What do you make of their relationship?
It's extremely strange. I mean, it's his best friend, theoretically. They grew up together, and they do look a lot alike, which is even stranger. But can you imagine at your own wedding having your best friend come up to you and say, I'm having problems, and frankly, can you help me out? And can you beat up the guy I think my wife is seeing? And, oh, by the way, I think I need to kill my wife. It is the strangest scenario I've ever heard, frankly.
Prosecution says A, B, and C. Those are the three people implicated here. Keith, if you were defense counsel here in this case, you have the opportunity to cross-examine the state's star witness. What would you ask?
Well, the first thing is, did you really need Mr. Rodgers to be there? Why are you even, could you have done this by yourself? Why do you need an extra person? The fact, I think you just brought it up earlier, at the wedding, that's a terrible time to be bringing up, killing somebody. This is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. You're getting a wedding. So the timing is terrible. And I've tried to just pretty much show where he's not credible at all. Maybe he has some kind of anger against Mr. Rodgers. But you got a real strong uphill battle right now. So it's going to be a really important cross. There's a lot of questions I'll try to get off the table.
Terri, how do we know that it wasn't Wright who bludgeoned her to death? How do we know that it's Rodgers? I mean, has there anything that you've seen during the course of this trial, other than the words of that man who put them together in that area, at that home, at that time, that tells you who actually inflicted that fatal blow or fatal blows?
It's interesting from a forensics point. You want to make sure that you put somebody's handprint on the hammer that did it. And I don't think we've seen that here. So it's really going to be Wright against Rodgers. And whenever you have two people involved in this sort of incident, it's one word against the other and who's more credible. So right now, Wright is the one on the stand, and we'll see if the jury believes what he's saying.
Keith, they had trouble, the defense. They can't argue away that their client took this trip, but they've characterized it as a vacation. And I'm curious, how would they, maybe during cross-examination, still try to play up that angle? Still try to say, look, he took that trip with you, but he had nothing to do with this. How do you think they can do that?
Well, I think initially, if I remember correctly, he said that he didn't tell him initially that it was going to be for a murder. He knew it was something going on, but not initially that it's going to be a murder. So, maybe say, hey, we was going down there, we knew we were doing something maybe illegal, but not murdering somebody.
Right.
So you got to try to play that.
Well, this is the way we thought it was going to start. And talking about substantial assistance, I mentioned this the other day. how is he doing in answering these questions? Because clearly they're trying to show he's biased and is going to say whatever he needs to say to get a good deal. How's he doing?
I think he's doing a great job. He's not letting her put words in his mouth. She's trying to say that he lied and that his story changed from the beginning, the first proffer, the second proffer. And he's basically saying, yes, in the beginning I lied, but now I'm telling the truth and I have an obligation to tell the truth, and that's what I am doing. So the substantial assistance, I think he's basically just saying the assistance was the fact that I'm telling the truth.
Keith, what is substantial assistance? It doesn't mean that he has to help them secure a guilty verdict against Rodgers, right? That's impossible. Can't have a deal like that. What does it mean?
It means that basically he's going to go in there, he's going to give all true testimony, things that are going to help the case significantly, help the state significantly with their case. That he's also going to agree not to change his story when we get on the stand, because what happens, people say, hey, yeah, I'll testify, but if you get on stand and say something totally different than what we've talked about in the past, then the deal's done, the deal's off. So basically what he's doing now is he's going to keep telling the truth to the state's best knowledge and hopefully make sure they secure this victory.
What happens in a situation if the state, I'm just speculating here, but I'm always curious. Let's say he does help them get a guilty verdict here, but they said, you know what, we didn't think you did a great job on the stand. We felt you were inaccurate. We felt that you lied. Your testimony really didn't help us secure that verdict. Can they rip up that deal and he goes to life?
Sadly, they have that option.
What recourse does he have?
He has very little recourse, and I think he can get his attorney to help him out. His attorney is involved in that whole process, and they can challenge it, but there's very little, I think, at that time you can do at that point.
Keith, in your expertise, in your career, seeing these kinds of defendants testify, how does a jury usually view them? This guy went on the stand and said that he hit this woman with a hammer, but that it was Rodgers who's the one who really inflicted the most damage. But they're looking at him, they're hearing him. How do you think they view him?
Well, it really depends, but for this particular case right here, I think he seems very credible. He doesn't really show too much emotion, but he does seem straightforward. He said that this time he's telling the truth, and yeah, he did get a deal, but that's the minimum he could get, which is pretty heavy. So I believe him. If I was on the jury, I would say I think he's pretty credible.
All right. Well, we're going to jump back live for more of this man testifying, again, talking about his deal, his credibility, and him changing his story. Let's go back. Terri, I like this back and forth. There's a little tension, there's a little sarcasm, a little sass from both sides. How do you think this is going? How is he holding up? Because she's making some really solid points.
I think she's making points, but the issue with the defense attorney is they're generally small points. What he's saying in his mind is, okay, I don't remember exactly what I said, but the bottom line is we both killed her. And so I think the jury is looking at him and thinking, these are minor details. The bottom line is I believe what he's saying.
The first thing he said yesterday, or one of the first things he said yesterday, was I changed up my story to protect myself and to protect my co-conspirators. He said that. So the reason how they try to say, well, you changed your story, but were you pressured to change the story by police? That's the interesting question here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be live.